My name is Daniel Roberts. I'm a 20-year-old man, and I live in a small town in Arizona with my single mother. This story happened a year ago. I worked at a post office, and it was lousy pay. But it was the only job I was able to get at the time. So one night, I was on my way home from work when I realized my gas was running low. So I drove to the nearest gas station and parked my car at the pump. And as soon as I went inside the store to pay for my gas, this woman walked up to me. She looked very young, about 18 years old. By the way she dressed, I could tell she was a goth. Her face is covered in black makeup and had long curly hair. She had on a long gothic coat, skinny jeans, and long black boots. Anyway, she was very nice at first by asking me about myself, like, what's your name? Where are you from? Where do you work at? You know, normal questions. After I answered all her questions, I said, it was very nice to meet you. You have a good night. And I thought that was it, so I paid for my gas and walked outside towards my car. Then the woman began following me to my car, and I turned around and said, do you need anything? And she said no, and came to tell me that I had a nice car. And I said thanks. I tried to be calm, even though at this point, I am freaked out. She walked back inside the store, so I finished pumping my gas into my car and got inside. I was about to drive off, but then I felt a little hungry and decided to grab a snack. Since I thought I was going to be quick, I left my car running with the doors unlocked. I walked inside the store, and while I was looking for a snack, I noticed the woman walked out of the store, and she was walking towards my car. And as soon as she saw me walk outside with her, she ran to my car and got into the front passenger seat of my car and locked the doors. I yelled at her to get the hell out of my car, but she didn't say anything and gave me an evil smile that creeped me out. Then she scooted over to the driver's seat and drove off. I immediately called 911 to report to them that my car was stolen. I told the police that my car has a GPS tracker and I can track down my car. So the police took me to where my car GPS was. We found my car. It was abandoned on the side of the road. It was vandalized and had writings on the seats saying, I will see you again, and I will kill you. Still to this day, they never found her, and I will always be traumatized for the rest of my life.
This disturbing story happened during the year of 2019. However, if you would like to animate it, you shall. It took place in the time of quarantine, when almost everything was shut down. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but moved to Virginia because the countryside is more peaceful and doesn't have as many thugs. I worked as a night auditor in a hotel. I won't say the name due to safety reasons. My shifts were usually from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. One night after my shift, I went outside while it was still slightly dark when a tall, stocky man started walking towards me, cradling something in a blanket. I'd been trying to avoid as much human interaction as possible on account of the pandemic, and I am a single mother to 4 very young boys, my youngest being only 6 months old. I was already having a suspension of the man anyway, because who would randomly be standing outside of a hotel with a baby at 6 o'clock in the morning? I tried to hurry to my car before he could get to me, but he said, "Excuse me, ma'am, I need to go to your house to change my baby's diaper. He hasn't been changed since yesterday." Call me mean if you want to, but there was no way I was going to take him to my house. I had sympathy for the baby, but I had my own children's safety to worry about. I said, "Sir, I will unlock the hotel's public bathroom so you can use the diaper changing station in there." "No," he yelled. I then started sprinting to my car. Of course, he chased me. I locked the doors as soon as I got in, but when I started driving, the man jumped out in front of me. He moved once he realized that either he was going to get out of my way or get run over. The next night when I clocked in, I noticed a letter in my cubbyhole that read, "You little bitch, you're lucky that we were outside a building full of people. Just remember that next time, your luck might not be as fortunate." Under my desk was a fake baby doll, wrapped in some color blanket that the man was cradling the night before. The realization showered me in fear. I showed my boss and told him that I didn't want to work a night job anymore, thinking that the man might be stalking me during the nights. A few days later, I found out how wrong I was. I was at home enjoying a peaceful day with my children when I got a creepy letter with no return address that read, "You think you got away? I followed you home from work. I know where you live. I know what you drive. I see you outside as you watch over your little blood bags while they're playing in the yard every evening. I know their names. I know what they look like. I know everywhere they go. Remember, I'm always watching." I kept receiving those sickening, disturbing letters for a long time. The police said that the man left no fingerprints on the letters, so there was nothing much they could do. I didn't let my children go outside much anymore. One morning, it was past midnight when I heard knocking on the door. I looked out the peephole to see the same man from the night at the hotel. I remained silent, thinking maybe he will think I'm not home until he said, "I've been here a lot longer than you think. I know you're right there, and all 4 of your blood bags are in there somewhere. Just wait until I get in there and put my hands on them." I ran upstairs, gathered my children, and locked them in a room with me. I called the police, and that's when I heard glass shattering from downstairs. The man was in the house now. He searched downstairs for what seemed like 20 minutes, then came upstairs, kicking every door and shouting. The shouting grew louder. He was right outside the room we were in. The commotion startled my 6-month-old, so he started whining and moaning. I brought him to my chest, trying to calm him. He was starting to quiet down until the man threw a heavy object at the door and shouted louder. My baby then threw his head back and let out a long and loud cry. The man started kicking the door until I finally heard the police sirens pulling in my driveway. The kicking stopped, and I heard footsteps running down the stairway. The police caught him as soon as he tried to call out the back window. They told me that he had been wanted for assault, harassment, and child abduction. That happened 2 years ago, and my oldest son, who is now 8 years old, has not been the same since. He acts scared to go outside. My other 3 sons are now 6, 4, and 2. However, they do not understand the situation like my oldest does, and I dread having to tell them, due to the trauma that it could bring them.
I love to drive, like hours-long drives to nowhere with no destination in mind. Just me, my music, and the road ahead of me. Living in Nebraska, I'd often take back roads or lonely highways cutting through the countryside to small towns and eventually cities, and I'd usually take these drives at night since they were less traffic to worry about. I've done it since I've had my license 4 or 5 years ago, and I've never once had any sort of issue, nor have I ever run into any trouble. That was until a few nights ago. For reference, I'm a relatively small 22-year-old female, and as I stated before, I often take these drives completely and utterly alone. They're a good way to clear my head when I'm stressed, upset, or overwhelmed, or for me to get a plan together to sort personal issues out. I've also done these long and lonely drives to get away from the toxicity of my household when I used to live with my parents as a means of coping with their alcoholism. Though now that I've moved out and am in a much better place mentally, I don't really have the urge to get in my car and just drive anymore. However, on the night that this event took place, I was feeling pretty overwhelmed, stressed, and anxious with a ton of personal issues I'd rather not get into. I felt restless and irritable around my boyfriend, couldn't focus on anything else and decided I could take a drive to clear my head. My boyfriend was understanding and told me to be careful and to not be gone for too terribly long since it was getting pretty late. I agreed, gave him a kiss goodbye, and left. I drove around our city for about 30 minutes, but I was still feeling on edge about everything transpiring in my personal life, so I decided to drive further north down those familiar, dark, winding one-lane highways. I kept the car at a steady 65 miles per hour, taking the turns at a slower pace in case a deer jumped out around the bend, and was just admiring the vast empty darkness of the snow-capped fields and barren trees. It was honestly a bit creepy being all alone with no cars in sight, in seemingly the middle of nowhere. The few houses miles back from the road, lightless, and the dead cornfields withered away and covered in snow. It was like something out of a horror movie, and I half expected to see a ghost pop up in my rearview mirror or see someone clamber out from the patches of trees dotting the horizon. The only light came from the headlights, and even then I still strained to see through the inky darkness of the night. By now it was just after 11, and I told myself that once I made the familiar roundabout that would either take you to a small town or back up towards the city, I would head back to the city and home. That roundabout was still maybe 15 to 25 minutes away, but other than my imagination picturing the worst, I wasn't really all that concerned. I mean, I was by myself. I didn't have any other motorist to worry about, right? As I'm rounding around another bend, I notice a vehicle with its hazard lights maybe a quarter of a mile or something away from me. It was some sort of sedan, dark-colored, and was angled to where only part of it was on the shoulder while the rest was jutted out into the road. Like they had pulled over in a hurry but didn't quite manage to do that. The driver's side door was flung wide open, and as I slowed my vehicle down and angled it towards the opposite side of the road to pass, I could make out what looked like maybe blood on the open door. I didn't see anyone on the road or in the car, and I was the only motorist in sight. Cell phone reception is spotty at best in this part of the country, but more often than not, you couldn't get reception no matter how hard you prayed, which was definitely the case when I took a glance at my phone to see I hadn't had any service. So, a lone female on the road at night, pulling up near a vacant vehicle that looks like someone had been attacked on the inside, with no cell service. No, I'm no dummy. I've watched countless episodes of Investigation Discovery and Criminal Minds, and read far too many true crime books to know that this had bad and danger written all over it. But there was still a small part of me that worried something terrible had happened to whoever was in that vehicle, and I thought I needed help. These roads don't get a lot of traffic late at night, and temperatures were well below freezing. If someone were hurt or in trouble, there was no one and nothing else to help them but me. Still, I erred on the side of caution. I was still driving my car, though a bit more slowly, and as I approached the vehicle, I rolled down my window a bit, shut off the music, and called out, "Hey, anyone there? Are you okay?" I didn't hear a response. I worried they were passed out somewhere, but I wasn't about to get out and look for them. I told myself I'd call out one last time, and if I didn't hear anything, I would leave, and the moment there was reception, I'd call it in. And if I did hear someone, well, I had figured out my next course of action then. So again, I shut out, "Hey, what happened? Are you okay?" There was silence for a beat, and then I heard rustling in the shadows of the trees, followed by a gruff voice saying, "Yeah." I was relieved at first, and was about to say something in response, or possibly even stop my car and get out, when I noticed three things nearly simultaneously. As I inched my way past the front of the sedan, I noticed that there was no damage to the hood anywhere else in the vehicle, which I found to be strange considering the blood on the inside of the door. In the rearview mirror, I caught a glance of someone coming out from behind the sedan, and they were making their way towards my car, fast. The person did not have any blood on them, or appeared injured in any way, wearing a mask. Not like a face mask from the pandemic or a ski mask or anything normal, but one of those masks you could see in the Purge movies, and they were holding something in their hand. I don't know what it was. I couldn't get a look, but From its length and shape, my guess was maybe a tire iron or a crowbar or something. I don't need to tell you that I slammed on the gas the moment I noticed those things and drove like a maniac out of there. My heart thundering in my chest and my entire body shaking. My window was still rolled down in my haste and the music was still shut off, so I could very clearly hear someone, definitely a man, shouting at me, though I had no clue what they were saying. I just knew I had to get out of there immediately. I stole one last look in my rearview mirror as I drove away, mostly to see if they were getting in their sedan to follow chase or if they had stopped. The man with the weapon was still standing in the middle of the road watching me, and right before I looked away from the mirror, I saw a second man also wearing one of those creepy masks, and no trace of blood on him. I probably broke every law for speeding that night, but I wanted to get as far away from those men as possible. As soon as I made it to the roundabout, I turned towards town, parked in the Walmart parking lot that thankfully still had cars from who I assumed were workers closing up shop, and proceeded to have a full-on meltdown. When I could pull myself together, I called one of my friends, T, who was a police officer, to tell him what happened and what I should do. He was concerned for me, and after asking if I was okay, where I was, did they follow me, etc., he told me since it was out of city limits, he couldn't do much on his end, but he could get in contact with the local police sheriff in that jurisdiction to take my statement and check it out. I agreed, thanked him, and while I waited for police to show up, I called my boyfriend. Through my hysterical sobs and panic, I managed to tell him what happened not even 10 or so minutes ago. He was, as you can imagine, super freaked out for my safety and wanted me to either come home immediately or drive down himself to take me home. I told him the police were on their way to take my statement, so I couldn't leave and that I was okay, but I stayed on the phone with him until I saw the familiar police cruisers pulling into the lot. I gave the police my statement and they assured me that they would go back to the spot. I told them that the sedan had been to take a look and they would try to catch the guys who did it, though with no cameras and no description of the men, I wasn't sure what they'd be able to do. I didn't even get the license plate number, though at the time of my panic, the thought never came to mind until the police were asking if I got it. All they had to go off of was a dark-colored sedan and two guys with masks. After I gave my statement, I went home and stayed curled up close to my boyfriend the whole night, listening to every sound the house made in fear that it would be those guys arriving any minute to finish whatever it was they started. Since the incident, I haven't heard back from the police about whether or not they had any leads, and I'm not sure if they ever will. I'm just thankful I'm still here and that I didn't stop my car or get out. I'm not sure what would have become of me if I had. I still had so many questions that have no answers. What were they doing? Why? Was that blood on the inside of the car, or just a ruse to get more attention? If it was really blood, did they hurt someone else? What would have happened to me if I had stopped my car? Needless to say, I won't be going on any more late-night drives to anywhere, and I hope I never cross paths with those freaks again.
Our official merch store is finally here. If you want to support more of our channel, check out our merch shop. The link is in the description down below. See you on the next video.